is each one of them, make sure I get the rules right, Elaine. Each one of them gets 2 minutes to do an introduction, tell us a little bit about themselves and why they're running. And then Sam is the timekeeper. Okay? So when he raises his time, he says, that's it. I'll cut you off. Don't get mad at me, because I'm going to cut both of you off. I don't care who it is. Because Sam is the timekeeper. We're going to raise your hand high so people will know that I'm not being rude and I'm just following your key. There, perfect.
That's the 1 minute warning.
That's the 1 minute warning. And so what we'll do is when we ask questions, so if I ask Mr. Ricks a question, he'll get a minute to answer, and then Sam, at the end of a minute, you raise your card, okay, and he'll stop talking. If he doesn't, I'll cut him off. And then Representative Nate gets 30 seconds to respond, so be sure to 30 seconds. Okay. All right. So with that, did you decide who's going first?
Oh, we're flipping a coin to see who goes first.
Okay, do you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have to?
Oh. Actually, that is not happening. You guys want to do rock, paper, scissors? Okay. And rock, paper, scissors for the, okay. You have a point. They didn't have a point.
I do. I think it's
Oh, she's got, I didn't bring her over. Okay.
Who has awesome?
Okay, so, yeah, who carries money? This is Canadian. We'll have Mr. Riggs, you call it, okay? And if you get it right, you get to pick whether you go first or second.
Let's see, I better go ahead because I'm not sure what's on the other side.
I'm not sure what that is. It's a tail, okay? Because the head's on the other side. Okay. So, Representative Nate, you want to go first? I'm keeping this order. Okay. All right. Go ahead, you begin.
Good evening, District 34. My name is Ron Nate, and I'm proud, humbled, and find it a privilege to be your representative for the last 2 years. When I ran 2 years ago, I made a promise that when I looked at legislation, I would put it to 3 tests. That it would be, for me to vote yes on a piece of legislation, it would have to be constitutional, it would have to be economically feasible, and morally sound. Also, when I got to the legislature, the first thing we did on the floor of the House was to swear an oath to support the Idaho and U.S. constitutions. In my 2 years over in Boise, I've kept my promise, and I've been true to my oath. And that is my promise, if re-elected, that I will keep those promises and stay true to that oath. I've worked hard at making sure that I cast informed and well-researched votes. Whenever a bill comes before me, and we have hundreds of bills each session, I do my research. I research the bill, I look at the financials on it, I ask others if it's needed, I consider the debate, and I put it to those tests. And I never want to be voting for a bill that I'm not well informed on. So I keep those promises. As a representative, I try and stay informed and in touch with citizens. I made a commitment that when citizens contacted me, I would be receptive and responsive to them. We get hundreds of emails a week. I reply to every email. I return every phone call. I've kept that promise. I like to be responsive to citizens. Citizens have come to me with legislative ideas. The idea to repeal the SBAC test came from our school superintendent. And a lot of support from the families in District 34 was helpful in moving that forward. Although it didn't pass, it had a significant impact. The ultrasound information bill and constitutional carry bill were the same way.
Okay, thank you.
Cut off by my son.
Good. Way to go. He loves the power, I can tell. Okay, Mr. Ricks.
All right, I'm Doug Ricks. I'm from Rexburg. I'm a native of this area. I grew up on a farm, learned how to work hard as a youngster, and I've been able to maintain those principles of hard work in some of the businesses that I've owned, and also the current workplace that I do now. I actually work at BYU, Idaho, like my colleague here, Ron. In fact, I'm hoping to give him a pay raise. I think he probably makes more money working at BYU, Idaho than the state. But anyway, I am running because I believe in free principles. I do have, I'm a conservative, but I'm a common sense conservative. And I do pledge to work towards the best to represent District 34. You know, growing up as a conservative Republican, I learned many principles from my father, who was a state senator, and he also served as lieutenant governor for a short period of time. He was a true statesman, and I learned from his example. I feel it important to step up and be able to serve our District 34. I think I can do a good job. The main reason I got involved in this, I am a PCO in Madison County. I'm also the chairman of the Madison County Republicans, but I'm concerned about the voting record of Mr. Nate. We're friends, but I do disagree on many of his viewpoints, and I feel that he's voted against several important things that I think are issues that we need to support, like education, agriculture, firefighters, the police, and efficient government. In fact, he's voted over 120 times opposite of some of our other legislators here in this area.
Okay, is that the time? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so let's do this. I've got some questions, and since you raised that in your opening statement, so you'll get 60 seconds to answer this question,
Okay.
and then Mr. Nate will get 30 seconds to respond, and then he'll get the next question, which will be similar, and then you'll get 60 seconds or 30 seconds to respond. Here's the great question: why are you better than the other guy to represent your district?
Okay. Well, I feel like through my experience, I'm a kind of person who I feel teamwork is important. I think I can work together with our other legislators to push forward important legislation and values that represent us here in District 34. As I mentioned, there's several bills that I don't agree with on the vote of my opponent. In fact, as I started studying some of those things, I was quite shocked at how many times he did vote no against some of those important bills. As I talk to people, I realize most people don't know that, and so we've taken time and put that out on my website, dougricks.com. It has a list of all the no votes that my opponent has, and I think you would be surprised, as I was, when you started looking at some of those votes. But I don't think some of that is responsible, and I think I would support and work with our legislators for the good of our district.
Okay, time. Mr. Nate, 30-second vote.
I think it's naive and simplistic to count the number of no votes as a measure of whether a legislator is good or bad. The problems we have in Boise right now are not that we have too many legislators voting no. The problem is that we don't have enough no votes. The legislation that I voted no on exactly fit with my principles and the principles that the constituents elected me for: constitutionality, economic feasibility, and moral soundness. I voted that way, and if Mr. Ricks would have voted
That's your time, Mr. Nate, that's your time, but you get the next question, and that is, why are you better than the other guy to represent the district?
Is that my question?
You get the same question, he gets the vote.
I think I'm the better guy to represent the district because I have adopted principles that the district agrees with. District 34 is a conservative district. Two of our Idaho senators, Senator Crapo and Senator Risch, consistently rank in the top 10 of conservative senators nationally. In the recent primary election, the two best performers in eastern Idaho were Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. Those are also consistently two of the most conservative senators in the U.S. Senate. My principles and District 34 principles match very well on those grounds. I rank highly as a conservative by the American Conservative Union, and it's been an honor to also be recognized by the Idaho Farm Bureau to be a friend of agriculture. I've got a 93% rating with them. To pick out no votes and say that you would have voted differently, yet adopting the same platform as me, there's an incongruency there that needs explaining.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ricks, 30-second rebuttal.
Okay, well, all I say is the more I looked at the record, the more I was, surprised at how many of those votes. In fact, if you took Mr. Nate's record, and if every legislator voted exactly like him, the state would cease to function. There would be so many services and so many agencies and different departments that would have no budget and not be able to function. So check it out. Look at the record.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got a question that Elaine handed to me at the beginning of the forum. We've kind of covered part of it, and given the question, I'm going to use the moderator's prerogative so we don't ask duplicative questions. So the first question goes, but I am going to ask this question. Mr. Ricks, would you please tell us, since you've talked about Mr. Nate's voting record, would you please identify what you feel is the single most egregious vote that he's cast and why you disagree with it? 60 seconds.
All right. Probably the most single egregious, is that?
Yeah, well, the thing that you find most egregious in his voting record that he voted no on, or however you want to phrase it, and why you would do something, why you would have voted differently.
Okay. Well, I think the worst one that I can identify would be Mr. Nate was the single lone vote against the stalker bill in both the House and the Senate. And, nobody wants somebody to stalk your children, your daughters, your wives and things, but that was a single lone vote at both the House and the Senate, and I'm a little shocked.
Okay, Mr. Nate, 30 seconds.
Mr. Ricks, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. I was the single no vote in the House. There were 3 no votes in the Senate. 2 of them were by attorneys. One of those attorneys is running for the Idaho Supreme Court right now. The reason I voted no, and I suspect why they voted no, is that it would put a penalty on somebody accused of stalking without them having the due process of defending themselves first. I don't think we should do penalties before due process.
Okay, next question comes from the audience. This goes to, if I'm right in my calculation, Mr. Nate. The question reads, all Republicans seem to call themselves conservative, even though their ideologies can differ greatly. If you consider yourself a conservative Republican, please define that term. 60 seconds.
I think a conservative is someone that comes to the legislature with a firm set of values. And those values are about limited government, low taxes, low regulation, and constitutionality. Those are the principles I brought to the House. Because I brought those principles to the House, and I voted exactly the way I said, then I tend to rate highly as a conservative. And I am proud of my voting record. Voting no 120 times means I voted no, actually it was 133 times, on legislation that was raising taxes, or increasing regulations, or expanding government, or being unconstitutional. If he has a problem with any of those votes, then he has a problem not only with my platform, but his own, because he's adopted a platform that is very similar to mine. So if he says that he would have voted differently on the stalker bill, or on an appropriation bill, then he's saying that he has to deviate from his own conservative platform.
Okay, that's your time. Let's do this. Let's hold all the applause until the meeting's over tonight, so we can just ramble right through this. Mr. Ricks, you have 30 seconds.
All right. I'm a conservative, and I do have strong,
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, hold on, sis. You got 30 seconds. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm a common sense conservative. I also think it's important to have teamwork. I think when you're working together as a team and working for the common good of the people in the district, you can get a lot more done for the good of the district. I pledge to work with our legislators. I know Mr. Nate's in a position, he's put himself against some of the legislators there, and he'll probably never be in the position of leadership because he's offended a lot of them.
Okay. So then, Mr. Nate, I asked you the question. You just got the rebuttal. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you the same question. If you consider yourself a conservative Republican, please define that term.
To me?
Yeah, you get 60 seconds, and he gets 30 seconds to respond.
Okay. Well, I'm a conservative Republican. Those values have been instilled into me since I've been a young person. I've always had an interest in politics. I've always kept involved and kept abreast of what's going on, both in local and state. I believe in God, I believe in family, I believe in freedom, I do believe in the U.S. Constitution, and I support all those things. I look that, I think people need opportunities, and I will support and promote, free enterprise and opportunities for the good people of District 34. I do support the Republican platform. I believe in those principles, and I'm proud to be a Republican, and especially from southeastern Idaho. Thank you.
And then you get 30 seconds.
Thank you. My opponent questioned my conservative principles and my ability to work with others. Three of the most difficult types of bills to pass through the House and Senate are education bills, abortion bills, and gun bills. You have to be able to work with others. You have to draft a good bill and make it legally sound to get those kinds of bills through. We worked hard and got a gun bill through the House and Senate. We got an abortion bill through, and we got an education bill far enough to have a positive impact for Idaho. And I cut off again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One of the things I'm going to do is I've got different questions here, and given where they take the discussion, I'll reach out and grab one of these questions. And since they've taken the discussion about voting records, the next question goes to you, Mr. Nate. Last year you voted against a 7-cent per gallon tax increase and also to raise fees for auto registration for a total of $95 million. Do you stand by your vote, Mr. Nate?
That was absolutely the right vote. In fact, that was House Bill 312. House Bill 311 had 26 co-sponsors, and it did the same thing for transportation without raising a single tax or raising a single fee. We could have done that, and the fact that this year we came to the legislature and there was $125 million more than was anticipated in the general fund was proof positive that my vote was the true vote. We could have funded transportation and more without raising taxes if we had taken advantage of the natural growth in Idaho revenues. And so when you go to the DMV and you find out that your registration fee is some $50 higher, that's because the representatives you send there are not voting necessarily in your best interest all the time. My principle is to keep fees and taxes low, regulations low, and we have ways to do this without always raising taxes. We can meet Idaho's needs and still be fiscal conservatives.
Okay, that's your time, Mr. Nate. Thank you. Mr. Rexburg.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of taxes. I don't like paying taxes like anybody else. And I would have to look. I wasn't involved in the whole process of that particular 7 cents raising the taxes, so I don't know if I have a lot that I can comment on that. I do know it's important to have good road systems, and we have a lot of potholes that need to get filled, but to have transportation industry it is important to have a good road structure as well. But I don't agree with taxes. I don't like them.
Okay, so to be fair, I'm going to ask the same question to you that I asked him, but in a different way. If you would have been there, knowing what you do know, would you have voted for the 7 cent per gallon gas tax and to raise fees for auto registration for a total of $95 million?
Well, it's hard to tell. I would prefer not to. I would, again, have to look at all the information, the data. They have people who run the numbers and run the statistics, but I'm not in favor of raising taxes. Again, I know it's important to have the critical structure of the roads. We've got to have that, and that is important. But I'm not a fan of raising taxes. If that was the only option there is, it'd be something we'd have to consider and think about.
Okay, Mr. Nate, 30 seconds to respond.
Well, from my opponent's answer, it sounds like that he would have been voting out of sync with Eastern Idaho legislators. Exactly something he accuses me of doing too much. When you go there with principles, it's not about trying to make other legislators happy. There's disagreements and there's agreements all the time. I have 104 new friends. I think I can work with all of them, but it doesn't mean we agree with every issue. So I love working with them and still sticking to my principles. We did not need to vote for a tax increase, and I'll do the same vote again.
Okay, next question is to you, Mr. Nate. What do you believe will be the main issues in the legislature for 2017, and what would your position be on that issue?
I think the biggest issue facing Idaho right now is that Idaho is becoming increasingly a subsidiary of the federal government. In each of our committees, there are federal rules coming in that we tend to have to follow, or at least that's the perception. We incorporate federal laws by reference in all of these committees. In environment, it's over the top. We adopted a 113-page rule that referenced 1,200 pages of federal rules, and with those rules comes the obligation for Idaho to try and enforce them. Idaho needs to stand up and be its own sovereign state, and in all of these committees, health and welfare, education, we are seeing it over and over again that federal rules are being forced upon us, and that's because we go after the federal dollars. I think principles are more important than money, and I'm doing my best to make sure that Idaho gets to make its own laws and that we can be more independent.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nate. Mr. Ricks, what do you believe will be the main issue in the 2017 legislature, and what would your position be on that issue?
So how much time do I got on this
You have
question?
60 seconds.
Okay. You know, I think that's important. I mean, Idaho is its own sovereign state. I know we are part of the United States, and so there is some working together with the federal government that has to occur. I'm not a fan of government oversight. I don't I like a lot of the stipulations and things that government puts on, you know, funding that they provide for us. But on the other hand, you do have to look at it, you know, reasonably as well, because I think there's somewhere in 30–35% of our Idaho budget that comes from federal dollars. And so it's not something you can turn all of that away and say, no, we're not going to accept any dollars. It would be a tremendous hit to education and some of our essential services in the state. It would be very tough. So there's got to be a balance there somewhere, but I'm not a fan of that. And I do think that there's this gap, some people call it the Medicaid gap, but there's some important things that's got to be done.
Yeah, that's your time. Thank you, Mr. Ricks. Mr. Ricks, next question goes to you, and it's actually one that Mr. Nate just raised, but it's on the list of questions. What are the principles by which you will govern? 60 seconds.
Well, I'll look at things, you know, I'll look at things constitutionally, you know, if they make sense. I want to protect our freedoms. You know, like I said before, I'm not a person who wants to raise taxes. I don't want to go there and increase taxes. I want opportunity. I think people need to have more options to create their own freedoms, have their own businesses, and not be bogged down with federal regulation or state regulation. And so the principles that I will do, and I'll vote, I guess, primarily first to support our constituents here in District 34. I'll vote the will of the people here and the values that we hold dearly in southeastern Idaho. That'll be my primary goal, but it will be based on constitutional and right principles. And that's how I'll make my decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Ricks. Mr. Nate, 60 seconds. What are the principles by which you will govern?
Well, I think I've explained my principles enough. I did want to talk a little bit about budgeting, though. Mr. Ricks said that if we'd had other legislators there like me, then the state wouldn't function. I think that demonstrates a lack of awareness or naivete about appropriations budgets. The budget bills that come out of the JFAT committee set budgets for the different agencies. And it's true, I have voted against a number of those because the increases in those budgets were unwarranted. One budget had $250,000 being spent for a building that agency wasn't using. They were paying to lease it, but weren't using it. That is a budget that I voted no against. And if he's counting up no's, he implies he would have voted yes for it. If 105 legislators voted my way, we wouldn't have had that excess, that wasteful spending. There's a lot of appropriations bills that come out with excessive increases in spending. I'm a budget hawk, and I try and keep our spending low. We needed to have tax cuts.
Thank you, Mr. Nate. So now we're going to go down to our last segment, which is each one of you get 60 seconds to give your final pitch to the audience, why they should vote for you. Since Mr. Nate, Representative Nate, won the coin toss, we'll let Doug Ricks, Mr. Ricks, go first.
All right, well, if you vote for me, you vote, you know, I will support our District 34 Madison and Bonneville County. I have some business experience down here. I do house flipping on the side. I've got a vested interest. I buy my materials here. I'm a business owner in this county. I've got a couple of properties here. I like a lot of things about Bonneville County. Very positive. And I like the people here. I will work hard to promote free enterprise, economic growth, lower taxes, education, limited government, more local control. I have a good basis on Republican principles, good examples. I will pledge to work with our legislators and work as a team to move forward and to get the job done. And I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Riggs. Mr. Nate?
Thank you. When I ran for office, I thought that being a legislator would be a lot of work. I thought that I would enjoy it too, but I was wrong on both counts. It is a ton of work. It's even more work than I thought it was. And it's way more enjoyable than I thought it would be. Yes, it's frustrating at times, but I really enjoy the policy and the work. I leave my 4 kids and my wife each week and spend 5 full days in Boise. I work 12 to 14-hour days to try and make sure that I cast the right votes for District 34. I'm in touch with District 34. They contact me very often, and I return every email and every phone call. I hand out these cards that say, if you have an issue, let me know. You can fill out the back, let me know the issue, put a stamp on it, put it in the mail, and I know immediately about your issue. Even better, you can put your email address on there and be on my legislative update that I send to 1,300 people each week to keep you up to date on the issues in Boise that may be important to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Let's give him a great big hand of applause. Okay, so let's have State House Representative. Now that we've all seen how this works, we don't have to explain these rules. Oh, but you don't have to do it, we got to flip the coin, okay? We'll have Chick, you want to call that?
Heads.
This time it's heads, because I can see it's heads. So you want to
I
go
go
first?
first?
Okay, so why don't you can spend 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
I'm here.
Just spend 2 seconds introducing yourself. No, 2 minutes introducing yourself and tell us why you're running.
Okay, my name is Chick Heileson. Of course, I'm running for the state legislature, District 34. Why am I running for this? Yeah, I guess it's probably in my blood. I've done it once. I know how to lose, and I'm going to win this time. I'm running because I look at the federal government and what they've turned into. More regulation, more intrusion on our rights, more of a little of everything, more government. And the state's not far behind it. And you look at Obamacare as a good example. Why have we got Obamacare in the state of Idaho? That's a federal program. And let me read you the 10th Amendment. You all know this. Of course, it says the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved for the states respectively or the people. That says if it's not authorized by the federal government, we don't have to do it. Apparently the state legislature says we got to do it, whether it was, they forced it into it or what. If we don't stand up about these federal intrusions, then what are we going to do? We're going to dig a hole and get deeper and deeper in debt, deeper and deeper, more government by the state, by the federal government. I mean, if we keep going that way, we might as well vote for Bernie Sanders. I think that's about where we're going. Then it'd be over with. We'd all be socialists. So I think we've got why do I want to run over there? Why do I want to go over there and be with those guys? I mean, they're all good people. I can't find things wrong. But obviously, I don't like the way my opponent votes. And so I'm running so that I can hopefully make some contribution to get them together so that we can dig ourselves out of this hole and stand up for the state of Idaho.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Heileson. Mr. Raybould, 2 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to come here and visit with you tonight. I really appreciate it. I'm running for office for one reason, and that is that I want to represent the good people of eastern Idaho. I was born and raised in Rexburg. I moved out to the farm the year after I got out of high school. My dad was an accountant, and I took up farming. I rented 320 acres the year after I got out of high school. And I ran that for a couple of 3 years and got married to my good wife, Vera, who's here tonight. And we got a loan, and we bought that farm, and we've lived on that farm ever since. So I know about the issues that are affecting this area, water being one of them. We have some tremendously serious issues with water. I serve on the Revenue and Taxation Committee, the Environment, Energy, and Technology Committee. I'm a senior member of both of those committees. I'm a senior member on the Resource and Conservation Committee, and I'm chairman of that committee. And I'm in a position to have some influence and really work with the legislature on our water issues. I'm a farmer and a businessman, kind of semi-retired there, but I still have the urge to be there in Boise and work on the issues that will benefit us here in eastern Idaho. I've done that in the past. I have taken issue with my partner, Representative Nate, on a number of things that he has voted no on. I voted yes for the people in eastern Idaho. And so that's why I'm running again.
Okay, thank you. So the first question then goes to Representative Raybould. This question came from the audience tonight. What position is there in the contest between you and Mr. Heileson where you two disagree? Tell us what the position is and what your position is.
That's a difficult question for me because I don't know Mr. Heileson's position. I will tell you my position though.
Okay, fair enough.
And that is that over the years, long even before I got there, the state organization was built up with our agencies, our departments, and things to serve the people here in the state. And my position is that we need to fund those agencies adequately to take care of their responsibility to the people. Secondly, I believe that our state agencies should have the power to offset, maybe not overcome, but offset federal requirements. The state has a law that we cannot have any rules in the state that exceed the stringency of the federal rules. We don't. But we have rules that match them so that Idaho has the power and the feds can't come in and tell us what to do.
Thank you, Mr. Raybould. Mr. Heileson, the question comes from the card I got tonight. Can you name one position that Mr. Raybould has that you disagree with and why?
One position.
You get 60 seconds.
Would that be a vote then? Possibly, I guess.
You can be a vote or something that he a position that's contrary to what you think.
There's obviously some there because I'm going to be running against him. But basically, the one that comes to mind is taxation. He voted for it in the past. He voted for the internet tax. And so those are raising taxes. Anytime we knew that, he brings up the thing, federal government again. We shouldn't be taking orders from the federal government. This is a state. All these rights are left to the state. And people say, you can't do that. You can't do that. The federal government says you have to do it. Why? That's what I said. Why? We have to do it.
Okay, Mr. Raybould, 30 seconds to respond.
Okay, you brought up that issue of the internet tax. That is a law that you must pay the taxes on anything you buy on the internet. On Form 40 of our state tax return, you fill out that line and list everything that you have bought out of state that you did not pay sales tax in that state for, and you are required to report it and pay that tax. The internet things would let them collect it for us and save you having to keep track of all of that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Raybould. Next question goes to you, Mr. Raybould. Representative Raybould, all Republicans seem to call themselves conservative, even though their ideologies can differ greatly. If you consider yourself a conservative Republican, please define that term.
I've always considered myself conservative. I don't believe that we should be spending or doing things that are not required by the benefit of the people of Idaho, especially the people here. And I use the irrigation and water and municipal water as an example. We've got to work, and we're going to have to spend some money to keep Idaho in the realm of having enough water, not just for irrigation, but for our municipalities. You want to be able to turn your tap on and have water come out. Our aquifers are going down. I chair the Resource Committee. I work with the Department of Water Resources all the time. And we're moving in the direction right now. In fact, this past year, we finally passed appropriations that would let us install recharge facilities to start putting water in that aquifer. And I want to go back there and help work on that for other areas of the state.
Thank you,
as well as
Representative
them.
Raybould. Mr. Heileson, same question to you, 60 seconds. All Republicans seem to call themselves conservative, even though their ideologies can differ greatly. If you consider yourself a conservative Republican, please define that term.
I don't like the word conservative because everybody does consider themselves conservative when they're running for office. I think that you should be able to judge the person not on the term, but on how they vote, how they connect with what the Constitution of Idaho says and the principles in the United States Constitution. So I think I'm more of a person that follows the rules rather than calling me a conservative.
Okay, next question for you, Mr. Heileson. What do you believe will be the main issue in the 2017 legislative session, and what would your position be on that issue?
The main, that's a tough one.
What do you think the main will be? So usually passed about midnight the last day. That's when comes the main.
It could be, and it probably will be, the intrusion of the federal government trying to push off the, how do you say it? Those who go to different gender and stuff like that. I'm not sure how you define the term. But that's going to be a pretty hot issue. And we as a state have got to either stand up, the federal government's going to step in and say, you've got to, these people that are building this cake have got to either give it to these people or not, you know, the situation I'm talking about. And so that's going to be a hot issue. And so I think it's going to be one of the main ones.
Okay, thank you. Representative Raybould, same question to you.
The state has opposed legislation now for the past 4 years that has allowed that LGBT to be included in state law that would require our businesses and other things to identify them and not discriminate against them. I voted opposing that law. I will continue to do that so that our people can live according to the particular sex that they were born with. But on the other hand, I don't oppose someone if they want to be a gay or whatever. That's up to them. It's not up to the state to tell them what to do, but it is up to the state not to let them overrun our religious beliefs, our personal beliefs, and those kind of things. So I would be opposed to any kind of a thing on bathrooms. When my grandkids go in the bathroom, my granddaughters, I don't want some men in there with them.
Thank you, Representative Raybould. And the next question goes to you for 60 seconds. What, if you could pass any piece of legislation in the state legislature next year, what would it be?
I think probably the one thing, and here again, I'm back on natural resources again, and we passed some. In fact, I carried 3 bills this year that helped us get on a movement to solve our water problems. If there was any one bill that I would do next year, I would try and move that forward, that we have additional funds available for more aquifer recharge, and I would also include in that legislation more information for the public to know where their priorities are in water. One of the big issues right now that we have is most people in cities think that they are under the domestic priority. They are not. They are under the municipal priority, which is 4th place down the priority list for water. Their domestic use, drinking water, cooking, flushing toilets, is first.
Thank you, Representative Raybould. Mr. Heileson, tell us, if you could pass any legislation next year in the state of Idaho, what would it be?
Having not been there for that long. The best way that I can put this is, you know, I know water is important. It's not the only option we have here in the state, and I agree with him on that order. But I like you know, there's a statement out there for drugs, just say no. I think that's a good thing to do. I think we pass too many bills. We don't look at another way to do it. We just up and say, well, we need the money for this, or we need to do this. I think we just need to look at ourselves. Can we not charge quite so much, or can we find another way to do this project or something instead of creating another board or another study or something like that? You look at the budget from the state, and they do all kinds of things. I think they could do better. And so I'm going to be one that, you know, in the past, another guy said he voted no a lot. I'm going to say no a lot too.
Okay, this is the last question before we get into your final statement, and it goes to Mr. Heileson first for 60 seconds. What are the principles by which you would govern?
Well, that's pretty easy. I mean, we don't follow the U.S. Constitution necessarily as a state, but they give us the principles and the spirit of how we should govern our state. And so we've got to look at that. Should the federal government, we say, be involved in this? Should the state be doing this? Should we be regulating and doing these things? Regulation. The founders in this Declaration of Independence were mad at King George because he's created a myriad of offices and sent swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. We've either got to stop this, like I say, or we just might as well vote for Bernie Sanders because that's what we're pushing: more socialism, more government. We need less government, more individual responsibility, and with God's help, a better world.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Heileson. Same question to you, Representative Raybould. What are the principles by which you do govern?
I think the main principles that I follow and try to follow is that we fund and we propose the things to take care of the needs of the people, not the wants. There's too many wants. And I look at the bills, especially the appropriation bills that come out of JFAC, and that group of people in there narrow those down to exactly what the needs are of the state as far as what they want. Now, they have some problems with that because they don't know what the revenue is going to be next year. Our revenue those appropriations are based on projections. We were lucky this year. The revenue came in above the projection a little bit. So we put that in the rainy day fund. Had we not had that rainy day fund in 2008, 2009, our education system would have gone completely to pot. We had the money to keep it going, and we need to keep doing it.
Thank you, Representative Raybould. Now you both get 1 minute to give your final pitch as to why the voters should vote for you. And because Mr. Heileson went first in the opening statement, Mr. Raybould goes to you for 60 seconds.
Thank you. And I appreciate being here, and I certainly appreciate living in eastern Idaho. Lived here all my life, been involved in so many things. I have 2 daughters and their families that live here in Bonneville County. It's part of my life too, with them here. I've been involved in business, both farming and other businesses, implement business, processing business. I've worked on items that are now being made up in Sugar City, there at the potato processing plant. I've really loved equipment. I have a couple of patents on farm equipment that I invented, and I just like doing things to make life better for people. And so that's what I intend to do when we go back to the legislature. And I'm in a position of seniority to get the positions that I need to be able to do that for our people here.
Thank you, Representative Raybould. Mr. Heileson.
Well, my position is I don't think we should fund the needs of everybody because that's a big, big thing. I need food, I need medical care, there's a lot of things I need. I think we need to look at that. I worked with the special needs for 5 years. We never got 1 cent from anybody. It was all donated. I think there's a lot of things we can do in this state and in this country, people can get together and take care of a lot of the needs out there. People are starving, but hey, like I say, socialism is very popular and we can just take care of everybody and everything they do.
Okay, thank you. Let's give him a hand, folks. Okay, you guys got to stay here for our lightning round now, so we need to have, okay? If you want to say some other answer, everybody's got to live by the same rules. If there's some other answer, you can explain it afterwards to your constituents, okay? We'll work this way, down this way, and then we're going to work back and forth. I have 10 questions. This is going to be a lot of fun. You ready? First question, yes or no? Do you agree that Idaho should repeal Common Core?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
This way, do you agree that Idaho should expand Medicaid for those in the gap?
No. No.
No.
No.
Do you agree that Idaho taxpayers should fund a state-based solution for those in the gap?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Do you agree that Idaho should own, manage, and control federal lands?
Yes.
Yes, I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
Number 5. Do you agree that Idaho should implement an internet sales tax?
No.
Yes.
No.
No.
This way, do you agree that Idaho should add the words?
No.
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 They all agree on something. Isn't that great? Okay. This way, do you agree with term limits for Idaho legislators?
No.
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 Do you agree that Idaho should be a refugee settlement area under the current federal system?
No. No.
No.
No.
Do you agree with the Idaho Freedoms Foundation's effort to repeal the grocery sales tax?
I don't know what their effort is.
They want to repeal the grocery sales tax.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
And the last question, the one that is the most important of the entire event tonight, we'll start down here. Do you agree with Donald Trump that transgender people should use the bathroom they want?
No.
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 More agreement. Okay, thank you. Good job, guys. This is a light round fun. It's good. Okay. So now I think we have our commissioners, right?
Yeah,
Oh, we got a question from the commissioners. So who do we have come up tonight?
District 2 first.
District 2 commissioners. Okay. Dave Radford and Jonathan Walker.